Okay, so I got the parking brake assembly removed, and I took the wire brush on the angle grinder and just cleaned up this pad. I'm trying to figure out how it's attached to the arm here, and I think it's a couple of little spot welds. So there's one kind of right there at the tip of my thumb, and there's another one just a little bit higher. So I'm gonna get the spot weld cutter and drill those out so we can get this little pad off of there. And then with the pad off, I'm gonna go retest fit the parking brake assembly in the truck to find out how far I need to move this over on the arm to get that clearance I need to clear the speaker grill. All right, I've got the little foot pedal cut off of the arm for the parking brake assembly. So let's put it all back in place and check and see how our fitment is. Okay, so with no spacer, no shimming of the parking brake assembly, it's still rubbing on the speaker grill. Just barely, but it is rubbing. So, I was afraid of that. So I did bring, I have this little, it's a locking collar, just kicking around in a box of bolts. So I'm going to use that to space the parking brake assembly out and away. And I'll reposition the camera and I'll show you where I'm going to put that. Okay, so right here where the parking brake assembly mounts to the side of the truck, I'm going to space it out right there. That's where I'm going to put that little locking collar, and I'm just using it as a spacer, not necessarily as a locking collar. But I'll put the spacer in there, put the bolt in there, and then we'll test and see how much clearance we have away from our speaker. Okay, so I put that little locking collar, my little spacer, up there on the bracket in between the parking brake assembly and the body of the truck. So that's in place. Right now the arm is about halfway down, halfway through its range of motion. And we've got 3/8 of an inch of clearance between the arm and the speaker. Now this arm does have a lot of movement to it. We'll go down a little bit further and it does get tighter. I'd say there's about 1/8 of an inch there. I'm measuring on the back side of the arm. The front side of the arm has a little bit better clearance, but the back side a little bit tighter. So there is clearance there. If I push on it, it does hit the speaker. So I may grind on the side of these arms just a little bit to add a little bit more clearance. But as it is right now, I think we're pretty good. So here's the little pedal that I cut off of there. I thought it was just two little spot welds holding it on, but actually the welds went all the way across on those lines there. So I ended up just having to cut it off with the angle grinder. So I'm not going to reuse this piece. I drew up a little template, so I'll cut this out, trace this onto a piece of steel, cut it out with the bandsaw and make a new pedal. But basically, the pedal is going to have to be welded on kind of like that. Just the corner of the pedal onto the end of the arm there. So let's go cut out a new pedal. We'll get it welded to the arm, do just a touch of grinding on the arm there, and I think we'll be just about finished. Okay guys, so as you just saw, we cut out our new little pedal that we're going to weld onto the end of the arm here. We also did a little bit of clearancing on the inside of the arm to help clear it against the speaker. So we're bolted back in place. Let's do another little test fit. As it is right now, there's at least a finger width gap there. Push it down further, that's about as close as it's gonna get. And we're at about 1/4 of an inch. We still got some side-to-side play, but if I push on it, that gap only drops to 3/16 of an inch, maybe 1/8 of an inch. So we got clearance there, so we're all good. So now we gotta take this all out again, take it over to the workbench, weld our little foot pedal back onto the arm, and I think we're just about done with this project. Okay, so I got the new little foot pad welded onto the arm of the parking brake assembly. I got it all reconnected underneath as well. So we're good there. We've got clearance against the speaker. The arm is not rubbing against the speaker. So even if I push on it, we still have clearance. We got about 1/4 inch there, and if I push on it even real hard, it only drops to about 1/8 of an inch. So we are good with that. So basically all I got left to do is the wiring and put wire up the speakers, and then put back some of the original wiring, these ground cables, things like that. So let's get started on the wiring. So just to test and make sure that everything was working, I left these wires long, but I just connected them to the speaker wire that I ran over here to the driver's side of the truck in preparation for installing the kick panel speaker. I did this when I installed this new retro sound radio. So I just wanted to test it, and the speaker does work. So for now, this is way too long. So I'm going to give myself some lead here, some lead of wire to work with. Just cut those off right there. Toss that out of the way. And then we'll just start stripping these wires back and connecting them. I am going to solder them. I'm going to use the same trick that I showed you in the video series where I installed the head unit, the radio. The same little, using the pony clamp to clamp the soldering iron to the wire so that you can actually solder off of a workbench. So let me get these stripped, wound together, and then we'll solder them. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. Okay. Set that down. It's not pretty, but it's a good joint. So just do the same thing over here. This would be the ground side. Solder that connection, pull our heat shrink up, shrink it down, and we're about ready to move on to the other side of the truck. So the connections are good. Just pull that heat shrink up over the joint and shrink it up. Okay, so the driver's side speaker panel is fully installed. We got full functionality of our parking brake with no interference issues. You'll notice here I added 2 screws to the panel. It was not sitting all that flush to the sheet metal of the truck. So these are just kind of plain old galvanized sheet metal screws. I'm going to go to the hardware store and replace these with something a bit fancier, some little ferrules, little caps, and some stainless hardware. This right here is a factory screw hole. So these will get fancied up a little bit, but this side of the truck is done. So now we'll just move over and work on the passenger side.